Thank you for joining us today to go through recruitment media planning and some of the approaches that we're seeing work at the moment, what's working, what's not working. Today, we are going to be going through the following topics. So this is particularly aimed at HR and recruitment professionals. The majority of the case studies and the data that we're basing this on is within the education sector, but we have also looked at other sectors as well to see what we can learn from them, to see what's working, what's not working so well for them, and also potentially to see what trends might be forming within the education sector in 2026. So we're going to talk first of all about some of the issues that everybody's facing at the moment, what's going on in the world of recruitment advertising and media. Then we'll move on to what approaches are people currently taking to recruitment advertising, what works, what doesn't work with that. We'll talk a little bit about what you could possibly do to solve that, what's our approach, why is our approach set in that way. And we'll also talk a little bit about data, because everybody likes a bit of data. We'll show you what you could be using to make better informed decisions about your recruitment media. And we'll also talk a little bit about what good looks like. And then I've just added a little bit of a note at the end there, so we can go through what happens if you do pick the right recruitment channel, but your advert still doesn't perform. What could the issues be? You should have the ability to ask me questions in the bottom right-hand corner, so feel free to ask as we go along. I've planned for about 25 minutes, half an hour of presenting, so plenty of time at the end to ask me questions if you want to know how it kind of applies to a particular situation, but also you might find it easier when we're on a particular slide just to jump in, so do feel free to interrupt me. So at the moment, we know from research carried out by a number of different organisations that recruitment media is often picked incorrectly, and potentially as much as 60% of recruitment media spend is completely wasted. Often that comes down to the fact, and we'll talk about this in a bit, but often that comes down to the fact that people are either posting across multiple channels and they're not really selecting the right one for their role, or it comes down to the fact that you're using the same channel that you used time and time again. In terms of the right channels, the way that you know that you're improving the channels that you select is typically those conversion rates improve. So for every 100 views that you get on your job advert, you convert more of those people into apply clicks or applicants. When done correctly, so when you do have a problem, if you do shift it, we typically see an average of 40% improvement in those conversion rates. We have seen in the last 3 to 6 months, in particular, many recruiters and HR professionals are receiving a lot of applicants for certain roles, but they are not of the right caliber, or they're not even suitable in many situations. We know that this is a particularly big problem at the moment for platforms like Indeed. And actually, for those types of roles, there has been a bit of a shift from Indeed, which is an aggregator. It takes roles from as many places as possible, to paid for options like CV Library, Reed, a variety of different job boards that are a niche. We also know that AI has been used by candidates to speed up their approach to applying for job vacancies. And that's had a couple of big impacts. One is that the information that you get through in application forms and CVs and covering letters can quite often be completely rubbish. It can be too much or too little, because they're using AI to do things quickly, and AI might not have the knowledge that it needs to have about them or the role to be able to complete the form. And the other thing that we're seeing is that with AI, people are applying for more roles, and therefore they often apply for things that they're just not suitable for. So if you are seeing lots of poor quality applicants or lots of poor quality application forms and CVs and covering letters. These are just some of the reasons that it might be, but AI is definitely playing a big part in that. And finally, one thing that's not on here that we do talk about a lot at the moment is the attention span of candidates has dropped quite considerably. Candidates used to spend a few minutes going through adverts, job descriptions, candidate packs, person specifications, websites, for roles that they thought they might be suitable for. That's dropped quite significantly. So you've got about 20 seconds on average to convert a candidate. So you can see the engagement information with job boards and career sites. And on average, that data is showing us that 20 seconds is all you have to convert them. So one thing you can do to learn from all of these things is to put as much information as possible in your job adverts, and not rely so much on your website and candidate packs that might be attached to the job advert. Does anybody have any questions at all about any of these trends? Perfect. So depending on the size of the organization, the sector, and the types of roles recruiting, there's a number of different approaches that people might be working to when they are selecting where they're going to advertise. Most people typically have credits or subscriptions for 1 to 2 job boards, so they'll use those platforms time and time again. That can work, but it is important every 6 months and every 12 months from the date of purchase, you're just reviewing that those are the right packages for you. If you're in a sector or an area that doesn't necessarily shift particularly heavily, that 6-month review is very important, but you're not necessarily having to review every couple of weeks or so. Some people are using multi-posters, so they're selecting multiple job boards. It is easier, like it is for candidates to apply for roles, it is easier to use those platforms, but they do waste money, and they do tend to use the cheapest quality credits. They might be branded, but they are poor quality. And the reason that's an issue is because if a candidate goes on multiple job boards or multiple platforms and they see the same job, it really does hurt your employer brand image. So we typically see people who start to use those get a very good return on investment for the first 1 to 2 months. And then that quickly slides as candidates are put off because they're almost kind of bombarded with job adverts in newsletters and job alerts and so on and so forth on these platforms. And then finally, the one that probably everybody has been guilty of at some point if you work in HR recruitment, and that's just using the same job board as was used last time. Or I'll add in there as well, the one that the hiring manager saw when they applied for their job. And that might be 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So yeah, there's some kind of issue with each of these. So the one job board is always going to be quite slim. The chance of you having the ideal package for the job, that might not necessarily be the case for specialist jobs. So if you're in education, academic roles, for example, you are limited by the job boards that can reach those candidates, but it might be quite slim if you're looking for support roles. So for example, an IT director will be on a very different platform than an administrator team leader. Multi-posters, they do rank very poorly, and therefore they get poor results. So those job credits just aren't good enough quality, and often those same candidates crop up time and time again. So they're seeing your job advert lots of times, and you don't really need applications from those people. And then finally, the repeating what worked in the past is not necessarily a great way to do things anymore, because those same trends don't really apply. So what approach have we kind of refined to solve this issue? So we look at the sector that you're looking to attract from, and we heavily research the job title for that role. So an example I would often use is if you're looking for a recruiter. So if you're looking for a recruiter to manage recruitment within your organization, then within the education sector, they're often called recruitment manager at the moment. And within other sectors, they're called talent acquisition manager or lead or advisor. The reason that's important to consider is because you might be recruiting for a recruitment manager, but you might want somebody outside of the sector or with other sector experience. So consider which sector you're attracting people from, not what job title they're going to have when they join your organization. And do be open to the idea of having one job title for the job on your website and another job title on job boards and recruitment channels. We then check against at least 15,000 different data points. So we post over just over 5,000 job adverts each year, and we also supplement that with data points from about 300 different suppliers. So we're then checking where's currently working for that job title, and what kind of performance should you be getting for that job title for your particular sector. And then we use those supplier agreements and those partnerships that we have to fill any gaps that we might have. So, for example, IT directors, as I mentioned earlier, very, very rare to have come across that in the previous 10 years. But last year, we got in about 5 or 6 different jobs for IT director or similar kind of title. So as the sector is kind of expanding and changing and adapting, we're seeing new jobs come along and old jobs dropping off, or old job titles dropping off. So if you're not really sure how you're performing, the data that's really useful to understand is the middle 2 points here. So what are the view numbers and the apply clicks on your job adverts? So the views should not be confused with impressions. Impressions are how many times you're appearing in search results, and they're typically thousands, if not tens of thousands. So how many people have scrolled past your job on the job board? Or if you're using a platform, say, for example, Tez, they're pushing the jobs out to content on their website. So those impressions might be coming from passive candidates. Views are really important. We're going to come on to why that's important in the next slide, but impressions also have some importance. They give you an idea of your employer brand reach. So the more people that are seeing your employer brand, the more people that will recognize your logo and your name, and therefore that will help you build up your ability to get people to click through to your job adverts. We know that those passive candidates that aren't just scrolling through jobs, they do need to see an advert between 8 to 15 times across a platform before they typically click to view it if they're not quite sure. So impressions do build up, but they take time to convert into views. Applied clicks can have a drop-off rate. So if you're telling people to click through to apply on your own ATS rather than a job board ATS, there can be a drop-off rate. Or if you're asking people to download and complete a form, there can be a drop-off rate as well. So any actual applicant numbers that you're getting for those jobs in your ATS would be really important to keep an eye on. Views, you should be aiming for between 150 to 250 views per advert. That will be higher on certain specialist job boards because you would hope those job boards are pushing out your job advert to passive candidates who make up about 75% of all applicants at the moment. And apply clicks, so the number of people clicking the apply button, not necessarily completing the application, but the number of people clicking the apply button should be between 12 to 22 to fill that job first time. So this is very broad rules, but it gives you an idea of how you're performing. At the moment, the average conversion rate in the UK is 10%. For the education sector, it's about 6%. That's remained fairly constant over the last 2 to 3 years, actually. It'll be interesting to see when the 2025 data comes out, whether that's shifted at all. The click-through rate is often something that the job boards and some media agencies use, is not really particularly relevant, because for leadership roles, you might be getting closer to 1,000 views, but you might only be converting 50 or 60 people to actually click the apply button. So that click-through rate will be very low, but actually it's low because you're getting those people being nosy about a particular role. In terms of what does it mean that might be going wrong for your job advert, views we typically see as an indicator of how well you're ranking in search results. So the higher you rank in the search results, the more people are going to see your job advert, because people don't typically scroll very low in search results for job adverts. And you can improve that to a certain degree with SEO, so that's search engine optimization. And that's just about considering what keywords you've got in there, using the job title people are searching for, and we can advise you on that as well. So feel free to send us the job title if you're not too sure what people are searching for, and we can tell you what works best and what doesn't. Another really great tip there is to make sure you start, the first paragraph needs to be about the actual job, not you as an organization, because that first paragraph by the search algorithms is given the most value. And we also know that candidates, because they're only spending 20 seconds on the advert, they'll read that first paragraph, and that's what needs to attract them. And then you have apply clicks, which are typically representative of how engaging your advert is. And this can be impacted by things like the salary on the role. But if you're using lots of buzzwords, if you're using internal words, and you're not really describing in a clear way what the job requires, then you're not going to be converting enough people via the views to the apply clicks. Anybody have any questions about the data at all? Perfect. So if your channel is right, you're confident in it, perhaps we've helped you, and it's working for everyone else, but it's not working for you. These are some of the things that we have seen have the biggest impact in terms of understanding what's going wrong. So where you've got the right channel but the wrong content, make sure that your advert's ideally 500, 550 words. If you're struggling with that, you, for example, have lots of content about your benefits or your approach to diversity and inclusion. A lot of job boards now do allow you to hyperlink through to content on your website. So you could have a page about diversity and inclusion, or you could have a page about your benefits. You can then summarize in your job advert your approach to benefits or diversity and inclusion, and you can allow people to click through who want to find out more via that hyperlink. Benefits really need to be setting you apart from other people. A good way of seeing this is to focus on elements that people will talk about with a friend. Nobody has gone to meet a friend for a coffee and said, oh, it's great that we get free tea and coffee or free access to the library at work. So focus on things that they would talk about. And we know that often comes down to culture, interestingly. So the relationships people have with their manager, whether they can put forward an idea and have that idea listened to, their relationships they have with colleagues, so do they feel that work is equally spread across everyone? So consider those things. What makes you unique? What's interesting about your culture? Why are you a great place to work? And use plain English. Don't overly complicate this. Don't focus on values that are hard for people to translate into day-to-day life. As I mentioned, the opening paragraph, it needs to be about the role, not about your organization or business. And people engage with that job detail first, not the team, not the department, not the overarching organization or business. So make it punchy, make it exciting, but also maybe use some bullet points just to describe what the ideal candidate would look like. And then you can send across your job and we can help you benchmark your salary. If you can't change your salary range, our recommendation would be that if you're concerned about it, still contact us, because what we can do is we can benchmark it for you, and then it will help you understand, is the job not performing well because of the salary, or is it something else? If your salary is actually okay, then you need to be looking at other areas rather than just saying, oh, it's probably because of the salary. Quite often salaries that we get sent across, they are spot on, or somebody has benchmarked it as an organization, but they haven't benchmarked it against other jobs that are live at the moment. If you've gone through the job description and benchmarked your salary, that doesn't necessarily mean that other people are not paying more at that point in time. And then where you really aren't able to change that salary, or there's not much you can do about it, really focus on those benefits and be very open and honest. So a lot of people don't talk about the fact that you might need to be on site. We know that over the last 2 to 3 years, loads of candidates are actively looking for jobs that are on site rather than remote working. It can be quite lonely, it can be quite hard to kind of fit in and kind of communicate with each other if everybody's working from home. So you do have a good opportunity, if you're in those kind of situations, to promote yourself out in that way. So 22 minutes, that's 3 minutes off my 35-minute estimate. Thank you very much for going through this with me. Does anybody have any questions at all, or any areas that I might be able to help them in terms of picking the right channel and understanding how to get the ideal content for their recruitment?